the smartest film critic in the world, Cole Smithy.
I suppose the main thing my review of Toy Story 3 accomplished was to expose a culture of groupthink created by aggregate websites such as Rotten Tomatoes. The editors at the Wall Street Journal and Time magazine fell in goose step with a bunch of faceless fanboy bullies with no regard for any critical discussion of Toy Story 3's failures, even on its own terms. Forget that most of them hadn't even seen the film when they jumped on the bandwagon to defend it, or more pointedly to attack my review. It's also unlikely that any of the people that beat their chest when my review punctured the film's perfect 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes had bothered to go back and compare the film with its first two installments, 150 so-called critics included. Now that the dust has settled on Toy Story 3, more and more audiences have come to agree with my view that it isn't as good as 1 or 2, although you won't find any such evidence on the film's Wikipedia page. Editorial prejudice, if you please. So for the record, here's my review of Toy Story 3. Once you get past paying the inflated price for a 3D movie where the 3D feels like an afterthought and nothing floats in front of your eyes, as in quality 3D films, the story that unfolds is more sad than joyful. It's also mean-spirited in a divisive way, pitting toys against toys in a warlike mentality not far removed from the captured prisoners in an occupied country. The inappropriately cruel and drawn-out climax sequence is reminiscent of the Holocaust and thus too intense for younger children who will be lured into the G-rated film. The filmmakers go so far into Michael Bay territory that I shudder to think what the mind of a 5-year-old would make of such contrived suspense tactics as are employed here. When the toys travel down a long conveyor belt toward a fiery death, the filmmakers milk the sequence for all the suspense and panic they can muster. This might be right for a Transformers movie, but it's all wrong for Toy Story. Toy Story 3 is about neglect, betrayal, and the planned obsolescence of plastic toys that wind up as toxic landfill. So it's got all that going for it. As the story goes, human boy Andy, voiced by John Morris, is off to college and must finally put away childish things, something most boys do before junior high. Talk about arrested development, this kid isn't getting any dates. Andy chooses to take his favorite toy, Cowboy Woody, well voiced by Tom Hanks, with him to college and pack away in his attic the rest of the gang, including Buzz Lightyear, voiced by Tim Allen, Cowgirl Jessie, voiced by Joan Cusack, and his Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head dolls, voiced by Don Rickles and Estelle Harris. Andy's careless mom, whose sense of parental responsibility is non-existent, accidentally tosses out the trash bag filled with Woody's pals on the curb. Soon, the gang of outcast toys, abandonment is a distressing theme smuggled into the story, are being abused by little kids at Sunnyside Preschool, where they end up. It becomes Cowpoke Woody's mission to rescue his fellow toys, who are being kept as prisoners by the school's head honcho stuffed animal, Lotsa Huggin' Bear, voiced by Ned Beatty. Beatty's wolf in sheep's clothing character poses the film's most egregious example of a two-faced character who charms the new toys before showing his determinedly dastardly intentions against Buzz Lightyear after buttering up the sometimes heroic astronaut. The story devolves into a prison escape plot where the toys break character as much as they get their plastic hearts damaged by the cruelty of their treatment by the preschool's other toys. If you're looking for an instructional movie on how to make your kids act like they're bipolar, here you go. Buzz Lightyear spends part of the story as a Sir Yes Sir product of brainwashed military training, while Barbie's new heartthrob Ken turns out to be one duplicitous little eunuch. Again, we have yet another two-faced character who represents all the trustworthy qualities of a Wall Street banker. Wrong-headed and overly mature for young audiences, Toy Story 3 sends some pretty dark messages for little ones to digest. And when I say dark, I mean bordering on sociopathic. A PG rating would have been more appropriate for a film that definitely sends all the wrong messages, even to kids over 10. Looking at all three Toy Story films reveals a trajectory similar to that of the Spider-Man franchise. In both series, the second movie is unmistakably the strongest of both trilogies. The first Toy Story couches Woody as a jealous and somewhat vengeful cowboy. Characters are repeatedly told to shut up. Most questionable is the film's ground rule-breaking climax, where the toys crossed an established line of not being animated in the presence of humans. When the toys confront Sid, the evil child antagonist, it taints the climax with a flawed Deus Ex Machina device that reveals a weakness in the writing. As well, the thematically overstated closing line, "We toys can see everything, so play nice," hits too much on the nose. By the time they made Toy Story 3, returning writer Peter Docter, writer on WALL-E and Up, and director John Lasseter, A Bug's Life, had honed the tone of the franchise to a finely pitched spectrum of musically nuanced and visually lush design to support its nostalgic underpinnings. Randy Newman's "You've Got a Friend in Me" theme is thoughtfully repeated. Jesse's song about being lonely and forgotten arrives in an autumnal setting that's emotionally evocative as it is gorgeous. The filmmakers hit it rich with Woody's discovery of his Woody's Roundup television series origins. The introduction of cowgirl Jessie, trusty horse Bullseye, and unreliable prospector Stinky Pete gives Woody an historical context and familiar connection that sophisticatedly anchors his character. Even the outtake scenes that play over the ending credits reinforce a reliability of narrative purpose that is sublimely humorous and comforting. An obvious split between the accomplished progression of the first two movies and the inferior final installment is the departure of the enormously talented writer Peter Docter from the franchise. John Lasseter's demotion from director of Toy Story 1 and 2 in favor of writer-director Lee Unkrich, co-director on Finding Nemo, undoubtedly contributes to the lack of cohesion. Gone is the meticulous attention to color and the glorious expressiveness of cultural touchstones expressed in Toy Story 2. Thanks for watching, and visit ColeSmithy.com for more.